So we all know it's coming, this digital currency, but what is it going to look like as all of this stuff unfolds? How is it going to affect our daily lives? And in this video, I want to go over that, as well as a short story from Daisy Luther that I've recently read about an app called Good Citizens. Basically, it's a story about where this could all lead, as far as the digital currency, the banking collapses, and then everything else down the line, how all of this stuff possibly could go. And as preppers and us, conspiracy theorists or whatever, it's basically on point as far as where I see things headed, with a couple minor differences and all that. But a lot of people, when you talk about this digital currency and how dangerous this possibly could be, and the way it's going to affect our ability to do things, a lot of people are just like, hey, it's not a big deal. It's going to make things perfect. It's going to make, it's going to be a whole lot easier to get things done. And my money's going to be a whole lot safer because it's all, controlled more than, just the cash, the dollar bills that we carry in our pockets, or the dollar bills that we take to the bank. It's all going to be more controlled and more convenient. And that's how they sell this stuff. You think back to, I think it was around 2009 when they first enacted the federal income tax, and how everybody back then, if you would have told them at that point, hey, there's no way this gets to 20 or 30%, maybe even in the future, 40 or 50%. There's no way that happens. We're just doing this small thing to help the, whatever the reasons were back then, the war effort, or, to get these things done. But there's no way this is going to get to the point where they're basically taking half of people's incomes. Yet here we are at 20 or 30% these days. Here we are where they basically have figured out how to tax everything, include, what you buy, what you sell. I mean, just everything in the world these days they can tax. And the federal government has grown into this giant monster because of that. So when people say that, oh, you're just being crazy, you're just being some sort of conspiracy theorist, you're out of your mind, it's never going to go like that, I disagree, because when has the government really ever done anything that hasn't gone off the rails before? And the answer to me is never. So it is a situation where I am concerned about how how this is going to just probably be easily implemented, because people love to sacrifice their freedoms for convenience, right? You look at cell phones. People carry cell phones all over the place. Everybody carries a cell phone these days, even though they know they're just it's just a tracking device, and it tells everything about you. People know that the NSA it collects every little data point they can on us. And what used to be a big deal, now it's like, doesn't matter. People have excuses, right? I don't do anything wrong. I don't do this. I don't do that. It's not a big concern to me. Let them track me. Well, what happens when it does become a concern, or they do create something that you need to be concerned about? That's what I think this digital currency basically enables them to do in the future, because it's going to allow them to do basically whatever they want. Now, how does this come out? In this book by Daisy Luther, let me pull this up here. In this book, this short story by Daisy Luther, she talks about how this could possibly go. And I think it is pretty interesting, a little bit scary too, as far as how everything unfolds and the timeline and all that. It says here, when the American banking system collapsed, a new federal digital currency was quickly rolled out to save the country. But soon it became all too clear that what had felt like a rescue plan was actually a hostage situation. It's exactly what the government does, right? Create a problem, and then they become the savior. And we'll see about them creating the problem or not, but one that affected every American. In a world of strict digital control, algorithms, new rules, and the mandatory app called Good Citizens, it was possible to reclaim your personal freedom. How did our nation fall this far so fast into a technocratic authoritarianism? Now, in this book, I'm going to try not to give the whole thing away because I tend to do stuff like that. But in this book, what had happened was that the banking system failed, and people that had their money in the bank were basically hosed, couldn't get their money. So that, people started, freaking out and all of those things. And if you can't get your money, all of a sudden the federal government comes to the rescue, right? Nobody's got to worry about a damn thing. We've got you all covered. Everything's going to be fine. Stop rioting, stop breaking stuff, stop doing all these things, right? Everything's going to be fine. And in comes the digital currency, where they just load up everyone's bank accounts. And because they exploited that pain point, everybody was okay with it. Or even if you weren't okay with it, you really didn't have much of a choice, because if you want your money back, you're going to have to join this into this digital currency system. And in order to do that, you've got to get on this Good Citizens app, because that's the only way to really make these transactions and do all that stuff. So sounds a little bit dystopian. Not so much to me, I don't think. But that's kind of how they do things. They exploit that pain point, or they create a pain point to exploit. So who knows if it is something like with these couple of banks that just collapsed recently. Who knows if that happens more often in the future, and who knows if that's sort of an organic thing, or if it's something that was created by the Federal Reserve and by the government and by these people that want to bring in this digital currency thing. Now, I think it's interesting. I've got this article, or not this article, it's a website, the FedNow website, which is something that is actually happening here shortly. July of 2023, instant payments with the FedNow. How fantastic. This is going to be so convenient for every single person in the United States of America, because you're going to be able to, you're not going to have to wait for anything anymore. You get your little, Good Citizens app or whatever they're going to use, and you can basically make payments to the government. The government can pay you. That's their little thing, right? We're going to make it super convenient for you, the American citizen, so you're going to want to use this thing. In this right here, they talk about find instant payments education on FedNow Explorer, which is a different website. So we'll open this up. When you open this up, it brings you up this cool little infographic, which to me looks like a 15-minute city, right? This is the future. Now, granted, this is just, navigation for their website, but I think it's pretty interesting that that's what they use. Now, on this website, they go through all the different things in what the FedNow is. And I haven't gone through all of these yet, but I'm going to. And I'll make sure and leave the link to this as well as Daisy's book, Good Citizens, in the description below. But it goes through all these different things and how it's going to make your life better. Now, when you read this first one right here, I think this is pretty interesting, because it says, instant and other types of faster payments can be used for a variety of everyday transaction scenarios. Although some of these scenarios are not yet supported in the United States, because they're still working on them and still figuring out what the problems with how these other countries do it, and they're going to fix those problems before they bring it here. As an adoption of faster payments continues to grow and extend to an ever wider array of scenarios around the world, basically all encompassing, it's important to familiarize yourself with all of them. It's important for you to get used to the new normal, basically. It's important for you to buy into our narrative and listen to everything we say about how wonderful this is. They're likely to become a part of the payment landscape of the future. So basically what they're saying is it's likely to become the only way you're going to be able to make payments in the future. And in here, they talk about all the different things that the FedNow is going to be able to do. And I think the FedNow is basically either the backbone of a digital currency or the first part of the implementation of a digital currency. But this is, basically sending out doing a test, basically. But this is basically the beginning of the rollout. So in this, you're going to be able to do person-to-person transactions. You're going to be able to do customer-to-business transactions, customers-to-government transactions. So if you owe us any money, we're going to make sure we can get our money as quick as possible. Although this is not one of the points they're going to try to sell people on, but it is part of the system. The part they're going to try to sell people on is government to customer payments. We're going to get your refund to you ASAP. So 10 seconds after you file your refund, we're going to have that deposited in your bank, and you can go out and buy your cornmeal cricket hamburgers or whatever it is that you're going to buy. business to customer transactions, business to business transactions, business to government transactions. Again, they got to get their money. Account to account transactions. So basically, every single transaction is going to be handled by the FedNow in the future. And in order to make this a whole lot easier, that's probably, it's going to need to be tied to a digital currency as well. So at any rate, I think all of this is all just very concerning to me. Like I said in the beginning, you know, people never thought, people would call other people crazy for thinking that we'd ever get to 30%, 30% federal income tax rate. Yet here we are. People would have thought other people were crazy when they talked about the government basically figuring out a way to tax every single thing they possibly can. And, you know, this government growing to the point that it is now, they'd have thought if you said anything like that, that you were out of your damn mind. Yet here we are. I think the same thing is true for the digital currency. Yes, there might be some things that absolutely make life a little bit more convenient, just like credit cards and debit cards did, is you don't have to carry as much cash in your wallet. But when you couple that with the fact that they will have access to every single bit of your information, every single bit of your financial information, which means they can track down every single bit of the information about your life and how they can restrict different parts of your life, how far you drive, how often you drive, how much gas you use, how much meat you eat, all these different things, how much food we stockpile, how much ammo we're buying. They will be able to see all of that stuff. And what may start out as a sort of, they'll give you incentives to do these things that are good for the planet, the green things, right? The World Economic Forum talking points, the inclusion, the equality, the sustainability, all these different things. Maybe it starts out as, you know, giving you incentives to drive less. Maybe we'll put 1% or whatever in your digital currency wallet or bank account, or maybe we'll do this or do that, or, you know, they'll start out with giving you incentives to do these things. But once they find out that incentives aren't enough, because like these days, you know, the World Economic Forum, these governments all over the world can talk about how we need to eat less meat and how we're growing meat in labs and we're making food out of insects and things like that. You know, buy an electric vehicle because it's much better for the planet. Don't drive that gas guzzler. Right now, they're suggestions, right? But it's not working like they want it to work. So with a digital dollar, maybe they can kind of give you some incentives. And if those incentives don't work, what happens when it becomes mandatory? It becomes law. It becomes something that you have to do, where you're restricted, you're rationed as far as how much food you can buy in a month. You're rationed as far as how much fuel or how far you can travel in a given time period, a month or whatever they deem it is. So all of those things, when they become restrictions, that's when we become, and Daisy kind of goes through this in the book, that's when it becomes this sort of dystopian type, federal government that basically has control over every single one of us. That's when it becomes that. And that's, you know, my concern. And again, a lot of people will say, oh, that's just outrageous. You're just thinking way too much into this. Well, look at the federal income tax and then, you know, tell me what you think. But with that, I want to get everyone's thoughts on this as far as where you see all this going. Couple this with the advancements in AI and all that. We could be looking at some, you know, a crazy decade coming up, a couple decades. I mean, who knows how all this stuff goes. At least with AI, that could be sort of regulated, possibly to the point where it doesn't kill humanity, like a lot of people are saying. But with a digital currency, I'm not so sure that can be regulated. You're going to have politicians that are going to talk about it and you know, speak a big game about regulations on digital currency, but they all work together and they all want to basically make their job easier and do things that are, you know, basically going to help the American citizen as much as they can. So at any rate, love to get your guys' thoughts on all this and where you think this is all leading. Do you have any articles, any comments, any ideas? Just leave them in the chat below. But I don't personally see, I see it coming. It's definitely coming. I don't think it's an if. I think it's a when. But I don't see it going anywhere good as far as America and the freedoms. This country that we've loved so much for our entire lifetimes is going to look a whole lot different in the next decade or so, I think. So At any rate, that's it for me today, everyone. I appreciate y'all joining in. Take care and prepare, and we will talk to you all later.